Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you tonight for this next album review, another new album review that I got a chance to listen to. This is the second of the three, well, probably the second one that I'm just going to review. I know there's an Ice Nine Kills live album, but I don't know if I want to listen to it, to be honest, because it's a live record and it's songs I've already know of and heard of. Like I heard they some I heard they something is the album's name for a live album, but this is going to be the last album review I probably will be reviewing, unfortunately, for this Friday's releases. Not the last album for my channel to review, but the last uh, album I'm reviewing for June 6th releases. So this is going to be for Rascal Flatts' Life is a Highway Refueled Duets. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for the 10 tracks on this 38-minute album and let you know my thoughts on this album overall. So let's dive into this album review. Now it starts with I Dare You featuring Jonas Brothers, and it's a strong track for how it is. I do like how Gary Lee Vox sings it, and so does Nick Jonas and Joe Jonas sounding good in this track. So this was a strong track for sure. I think the melody flowed very well and did pretty solid for how it sounded, so 5 out of 5. Then comes Fast Cars and Freedom featuring Jason Aldean. Granted, I'm not the biggest Jason Aldean fan. As you can see, I called him out on that Try That in a Small Town song. That song was utter trash, and still is utter trash to this day. And the way he sung this, there were times where I was trying to feel for it, and then there were times I was like, it's kind of drags. And then Gary Lee Vox does some weird vocal tone, but look at me kind of thing. I'm on that gravel road, look at me lyric. Yeah, the way he was singing that, it kind of sounded weird and cringy. But other than that, the song is above decent. It's not great, it's not terrible, but it's fairly solid, so 4.25 out of 5. My Wish featuring Carly Pierce is a strong track. It took a little bit of time to grow on me, but it did grow on me, so it's a 5 out of 5. I had to listen to it a little more to get used to the track, but for a duet track, it's solid enough to be listenable, so 5 out of 5. Mayberry featuring Blake Shelton is a pretty good track in its own way. Granted, I'm not the biggest Blake Shelton fan, but I don't necessarily hate him more than I dislike Jason Aldean, even though I have quite a bit of opinions about Jason Aldean from that Fast Cars and Freedom, which that still is a classic track to this day, Fast Cars and Freedom, the original track. The duet version is kind of above decent, not great, but not terrible, just in the middle with me. But overall, 4.75 out of 5 for Mayberry. It sounded good for how it was sounding overall. And Blake Shelton and Gary Lee Vox sung it pretty well. Stan featuring Brandon Lake is a pretty good song in its own way. It started off a little different with how the melody was structurally sounding, but still performed alright for the execution. So 4.75 out of 5. It did fine for how it sounded. Summer Nights featuring Ashley Cook is a pretty good song in its own way. I think Ashley Cook sung it pretty solidly and made it sound good. And so did Gary Lee Vox singing it too, so another pretty good song in its own way, so another 4.75 out of 5. The melody sounds pretty solid for how they're making it sound and all that for the mixing and production. What Hurts the Most featuring Backstreet Boys is probably my favorite song on this record. I think this track did pretty well, even with Backstreet Boys singing the verses, or certain moments in the verses were pretty strong for how it was sung, and Gary Lee Vox singing in it did pretty well too. So It's a strong 5 out of 5. It did pretty well for how it sounded. Yours If You Want It, featuring Jordan Davis. It's a pretty good song in its own way. Granted, it's not one of my favorite tracks, but it's pretty good for how the execution is for this track, so it did alright for how it sounded. So 4.75 out of 5. Life is a Highway featuring Lizzie Hale. The original track is a classic, of course, from the Cars movie. But this version, for the duet version, I don't know, Lizzie Hale, granted, I know someone said don't disrespect Lizzie Hale's vocals. I'm like, well, with this, her vocals kind of were a little all over the place a bit and kind of sounding like edgy a little bit. Like she was kind of being rough with her vocals in this. She didn't naturally sing it very well. I know she was trying to make it sound good, but with this, it's a 4.75 out of 5. That's the only critique I have. Everything else sounded pretty strong for this version. And then finally, I'm Moving On, featuring Kelly Clarkson, is a strong closing track to this duet album for Life as a Highway Refueled Duets album. So it's a 5 out of 5. Kelly Clarkson sung it pretty well, and execution-wise, it did fairly solid for how it sounded. 5 out of 5. Overall, production, mixing, and execution-wise, do I necessarily hate this record? Not necessarily, but I think it's a good record for how it's sounding. It's not as good as the Turnstile album that just is about to come out tonight. Of course, I think the Turnstile Never Enough album is better, but this one is still a good record. I think they did good trying to return as a band and have a little reunion as a band, and finally they return to music. Rascal Flatts have, even though I was surprised because I really thought they were going to be done, but I'm glad they weren't. But other than that, from what I listened to with Rascal Flatts, Life as a Highway, Refueled Duets, it's a good listen. So if I were to give it a score, I'm feeling a good 8 out of 10. It's a good album. Definitely going to be on my decent to good albums of 2025 by the end of the year. But overall, from what I listened to, it's listenable for sure. And it's something I'd recommend you guys check out. It's only 38 minutes, so you're not in for a long listen, under 40 minutes. But 8 out of 10. Sorry about the train going by. It makes that noise a lot. But overall, 8 out of 10 for Rascal Flatts' Life as a Highway Refueled Duets album. Hope you enjoyed this album review tonight, and thank you guys for watching.